They had already told my family I was dead. I was in a car accident, and they had to cut me out of the car, and they couldn't get to me fast enough. And so I'm going toward this light, and I'm just so happy to be going, and there's no thought of anything from the past or the earth or my life. And I hear this voice, and it says, "It's not your time." And I was so disappointed. I was like, "What? Not your time." I said, "Oh no." And it said, "Turn it toward the positive, Roberta. Turn it toward the positive." And the next thing I knew, I was back in the body.
When I was about 12 years old, I became very sick with flu-like symptoms. I was sick and out of school for an entire week. And finally, the last day, I was so sick that I just started throwing up black, and it was just bile at that point. So the doctors decided to put me in the hospital. They weren't sure what was wrong with me, but I was clearly dehydrated and did exploratory surgery. The problem was they found my appendix was ready to burst, so they took that out, but I caught pneumonia in the operating room. The nurses were dipping towels in buckets of ice water to try to get my fever down. And I remember them sort of, being so frantic. We're losing her, we're losing her. The fever's not breaking, it's not breaking. Faster with the towels, more ice, all that kind of stuff. And I felt myself starting to float out. And for a period of time, I was actually hovering above my body and watching and observing. I remember sort of seeing my mom's face and thinking, she was white as a ghost, like terrified. The fear in her eyes. And I was like, "It's okay." Like, "No, it's okay. I'm okay." And I hung there for a little while just in awe of this whole process that these people were going through to save my life. And once I sort of leave that hovering position, I started to do the classic that everybody talks about, sort of move toward a huge beam of light. And the experience was so fascinating because when I was hovering above my body, I was aware of a little bit of form. I still felt the form as myself, but it was very, like you could put your hand through it. It was very sort of watery and not solid, like the way that we are solid. And yet I was aware of my form still. But the further away I got from my actual physical form and closer to the light, I could feel the dissipation of that form. And I could feel the becoming one with the light and the eternity and the essence of all energy. Right about that moment, I felt this gentle hand on my shoulder. And it was like when a mom sort of, nudges a child, like, "No, honey, we're going in this direction," very lovingly and very soft. And then I heard a voice and it said, "No, it's not time." And within a few seconds, I went through that exact same opposite process, started to move away from the light, came above my body again, started to feel a little bit of physical form. And then I went into my body through my solar plexus, and I remember that specifically. I don't know why. It's fascinating that I really remember exactly where I came back in my body. And then in that second, I heard them say, "The fever broke, I think we got it," and everybody started to calm down a little bit. And that was that.
I had a dream about water and about drowning, which was rather unusual for me to have a dream like that, but it was one of those dreams that just stayed with me. My husband at that time came home and he said, "Let's go to the beach today, let's go swimming." I tried to tell him about the dream, but of course back then, we're looking 42 years ago, people thought you were a little weird when you had premonitions. And next thing I know, I was over my head in water. It was like someone had grabbed my feet and yanked me out. And I figured, well, I'm gonna die. He's not gonna make it to me. I can't stay afloat anymore. I can't breathe anymore. After 12 years of Catholic school, and being sort of religious after all that, I made my peace with God and just thought of different things, and I went under. And I could see the body that I guess I had just left floating in the water. And I honestly didn't know where I was, but I knew that I was somewhere and I was also everywhere.